May is such a beautiful time of year at the Stone Cottage. And here's the front walkway with, you can see on the right-hand side, the purple allium blooming. And kind of in the center of the screen, the lupin is now starting to bloom. That'll be going on for another week or two. And on the lower left-hand side is the hardy geranium, all that same purple kind of a color. And now there are some other purple flowers in this flower bed that will be blooming later, much later. But I look at this and I go, oh, it's time for me to take care of something. You know how if you do something early on, you'll have better results later on. And that is what happens when you do the Chelsea chop. Now, the Chelsea chop gets its name from the Chelsea Flower and Garden Show, which is held near London every year. This year, it's the 21st to the 25th of May. And so I'm a little bit early for that. So we're, about a week or two before that. But we're in Zone 7B, Northern Virginia, so my plants are a little bit earlier, I think, than in some parts of the country. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, I see 3 plants right here that would benefit from a Chelsea chop. If you've not heard of the Chelsea chop is done between mid to late May and early June, and many late flowering perennials, anything that branches, can be cut back, and it will result in neater, more compact plants with less flopping, so you don't have to stake them, more flowers, and delaying blooming, and maybe even staggering the blooming so you get a longer bloom season for individual plants. Now, this is a list of plants that are suitable for the Chelsea chop. Don't panic about it. I'm going to talk about these later. But I'm putting this here. There are 3 of these. If you want to do a screenshot, if that's the way you like to accumulate data, you can take a screenshot for each one of these 3 lists. Or if you're the kind of person that likes to do cut and paste and save it in a Word document, you can look down in the description and you can get the very same information. Here are the plants, so you don't need to worry about reading it. The first one here is Achillea or yarrow. Comes in a number of different colors. These are asters. This is Boltonia asteroides, which is false aster. Campanula, also known as bellflower. Chrysanthemums, hardy chrysanthemums that have come through the winter, you can cut them back. Echinacea, also known as coneflower. This is Helenium, or sneezeweed is the common name. Helianthus, it's the sunflower family, but these are the perennial sunflowers. Sedums, their family name is like Hylotelephium. I don't know how to pronounce that, but sedum's what we call them. Here's lavender. And this is the Leucanthemella, which we just call daisies. Monarda, also known as bee balm. Nepeta, also known as catmint. Penstemon, common name of beard tongue. This is tall garden phlox, not to be confused with the creeping phlox, but tall garden phlox that blooms in the summer. This is Rudbeckia, also known as black-eyed Susan. Solidago, goldenrod. Most people call it goldenrod. And this is Veronicastrum. It does have Culver's root is another common name for it. But that gives you an idea of the types of plants. And the thing that you have to remember is These are late flowering perennials that are herbaceous. So you do not want to do your peony because these are early blooming, not late blooming. They are herbaceous perennial, but they're late blooming. If you cut them back, you will not have any flowers. Also, not hydrangeas. Hydrangeas are later blooming, but they have woody stems. They are a deciduous bush, not an herbaceous perennial. Late blooming herbaceous perennials, what we're looking for. Well, the simplest way to do the Chelsea chop is just to pinch. This is my garden phlox, and frankly, I have been pinching this back for several weeks. Now, the thing about phlox is it blooms on the end of the stem. Now, here you can see this is one plant coming out. So it will create one blossom unless I pinch it. And when I pinch it, it will branch. Now, right here, you can see there, if you've got really good eyes, you can see how I pinched this one back several weeks ago. And this was the original pinch, and it branched, and it's making another shoot here. So it's going to give me at least 2, maybe 3 blossoms off of that one stem. So anywhere I look that has not been pinched already, I'll just pinch it back, and I can pinch it with my hands. I can pinch it with a pair of garden shears, and I'm going to pinch right above and that's as simple as it is. And every one of those will double the amount of blooms that I'm getting off of my phlox. So I would not be without it for phlox. Absolutely love pinching it back or cutting it back. If I had a big stand of it and I was pretty lazy, I'd get out my trimmers. Another thing that's often trimmed back is sedum. As a matter of fact, when you look for videos on Chelsea chop, a lot of times they'll do a sedum. Now, this can be done with your hands, or again, it can be done using a pair of scissors. And I'm going to come in. You can see I just trim that back. Now, sedum roots very easily. So I'm just going to remove that next set of leaves up. There it is. I could stick that in some nice moist potting soil. I could stick that in a cup of water, or I've got enough of this stuff. I'm not terribly worried about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my handy tool here, and I'm going to poke a hole in the soil, and I'm going to stick. Was that where my hole was? Yeah, there's my hole. Kirby's going to help me. I'm going to put that in there. If it doesn't root, it's no big deal. I've got plenty of this stuff, and anytime I break off a shoot, sometimes these get really leggy and I might bump into it and break off a piece. I'll do the very same thing, just stick it in the ground or stick it in some water and let it root, and then I have more sedum all over the place. I happen to have lots of garden phlox. This is the tall garden phlox all over my yard. Again, to increase the blooms. cut it back, I'll get more blooms. I learned to recognize the leaves so that if I see some, aha, back in here, I remember where I had some. There we go. I will get more flowers now on that garden phlox. Here are the asters that get extremely tall. Now it is about maybe 16, 18 inches down behind this wall. You can see it's deep in there. These things still grow up and they get to be about 6 feet tall. And then they flop over onto our path here, and I have been known to put wattle in front of it to keep them from falling over, but it's just, well, we're going to give it a haircut. Okay, so I've cut back the asters, and right behind it, this is more of the tall garden phlox. So I'm going to cut that back. Now, I do this with scissors because here are some lilies, and if I went in and just did a hack job on these, I would get my lilies, and I think I might have gotten a few lilies even with my scissors. So you kind of have to carefully go in if you've got things growing together. So you might be looking at this area and thinking, oh, she just did a butcher job on it. Well, it'll only take a week or two, and it will begin to grow and cover up where I've hacked it, and it'll look just fine, but it'll be so worth it in the late summer when these things are blooming and not flopping so badly. Here's some chrysanthemums. These were chrysanthemums that were just at the big box store last fall, maybe 2 falls ago, and they're still in the original pot, and they may have been like 4 or 5 for $10, and they come back here. We're again zone 7B, Northern Virginia. They come back year after year, and these can get really leggy. You can see these are starting to get tall, so cut them back. Keep them from getting too tall. I've got some more that I stuck in a pot. In a container. They'll bloom more and they won't get quite so leggy. Here's some, I think this may have been 3 years ago. I stuck it in the pot with the pencil holly and the hostas. It will bloom in the fall. I just cut it back a little bit. Here's his little friend over here. He'll be fine. Now, something I have that gets extremely tall and leggy and flops and makes quite the mess, these are my asters. And I learned to recognize my leaves, and these asters get so tall. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this was what my husband rigged last year. It's a stake, and it was on a piece of wire, and he used it to hold up the flopping asters because they were falling on the grass and keeping the grass from growing. These, I'm going to cut these back pretty aggressively because they definitely get way too tall for my taste. And I'll come back later on and clean those up. And I have more over here. and over here. Now, if later on I feel like they're still getting too tall, I'll come back in and cut them again. I don't care. I just don't want them to be so big. And they don't bloom until August. And I just want to quit probably about early July so that they have enough time to set seed buds. But you can see they are just all over the place here, and I've got lots more. Another one that can get floppy is Monarda. This is the bee balm. And again, I can take those, cut them back. Those will give me more buds. I was going to have my husband help me with the filming, but he disappeared off to do some garden work at Daniel's house. And these are the helianthus, the perennial sunflowers. And in case you can't tell, they are underneath some shrubs. That's a crepe myrtle, there's a viburnum, here's a lilac, over here's a rose of Sharon. This is an incredibly shady spot. Now, what sunflowers like is sun. So these get really, really leggy. So I am pulling out my trimmers. I guess that's what you call them, trimmers. And I'm going to chop these down, and I'm going to do a brutal number on these. There it is. Cut back easily 2/3 of it. There are little stumps kind of all around here. You can almost not tell they were here. But this will keep them shorter. It will make them flower more. They won't get so floppy. The proportion will be ever so much better. This is my Rudbeckia. I do not cut it back because I do not have flopping problems with it. And it's compact enough. It gets good flowers on it, blooms well. So I don't need to do it. Okay, tucked back in here among some bulbs that are just leaves are waiting around. This is some Achillea or yarrow. This is new. I think it's a compact variety. I just planted it last year. I don't think it's going to get too tall. I'll keep an eye on it and see what it's going to do. And if it gets too tall next year, it will get a chop. But in the meantime, I'm going to let it see what it can do. Over here, it's my echinacea, my coneflower. Obviously that's small enough, it does not need to have anything done to it. Again, this is one of those newer varieties that's compact. So just because the flower makes it on the list does not mean you have to do it. So if you have any of these herbaceous perennials in your yard that you would like to have a little better under control, try the Chelsea Chop and let me know in the comments which plants you are doing this to. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.